Monday, November 13th, 2023, City Council meeting to order. If you could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Do we have any additions to the agenda tonight?
No additions tonight, Mayor.
Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. With that, we will move to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to discuss anything that is not on the agenda, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comments and move to consent agendas. Anything on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled for further discussion?
Nick, did you get the email I sent you? You'll update those? Or do I need to?
Yes, yep, I have those updated.
Perfect.
All right, with that, we'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And then with that, we will move to the Pat Esser retirement presentation. So Andy, do you want to come up?
All right, so as Fire Chief for the City of Mare, I'd like to take this time to recognize Pat Esser for his service to the city. Pat served for 33 years and 4 months of very dedicated service to the department. During that time, Pat served as a secretary for many years, served as a captain for a while, and was always an EMT. Pat was very, very good at medicals. It was always a comfort to the other guys in the truck when Pat was with, because it was a very strong point of his. So we will very much miss your dedication, everything, the department. So we greatly appreciate that. We would like to also thank your wife for all the sacrifices and stuff that she had to do to allow you to be on the department. So with that, the department would like to present to you your helmet. Again, I appreciate greatly all your time that you spent with us.
Great, thank you. So with that, then we have a resolution congratulating Pat Esser on his retirement from the Mare Fire Department, whereas Pat Esser served as a firefighter for the Mare Fire Department for 33 years from June 1990 to October 2023. And whereas the City Council for the City of Mare expresses their gratitude for his loyal and dedicated service to the community of Mare. And whereas the City Council for the City of Mare wishes to honor his achievements by congratulating Pat on his retirement. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council for the City of Mare, Minnesota, that the city bestows upon Pat Esser a plaque of recognition recognizing his 33 years of service on the Mare Fire Department and a service helmet to commemorate his dedication and achievement to those same years. So with that, I'll look for a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion.
We have a motion from Helt, a second from Wagner.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. So with that, Pat, I'd like to present. If you'll come up. Yeah, we will present here and then a photo. So with this, the City of Mare proudly presents this award to Pat Esser in appreciation for his loyal and dedicated service on the Mare Fire Department and safety of his community from 1990 to 2023. With that. So if there's something, if you want to say a few words, Pat, then we'll do one more photo after with the entire house. Okay. Yeah, then have the fire chief.
I'll make it short. This one, how do I say it? It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the city of Mayor and the surrounding communities. It's also been an honor and a privilege to serve with all of you guys over the years. Made a lot of friends and acquaintances. Some are new, some been along the ride the whole time. From the time I joined back in '90, there's one guy left on the department that's still going, and that's Bob, but everybody else is retired or moved on, and so you keep making new friends all the way along. So other than that, I appreciate everything that everybody's done for me over the years too. So.
Yes, thank you. On behalf of the entire community, the entire fire district, we certainly appreciate your service. And on behalf of council, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council wants to come around, get a picture of everyone.
Both of them? Yeah, unfortunately, my wife is sick, so she couldn't be here. Of course.
All right, we'll start with yours.
Couldn't wear it, that helmet, I glare.
Yeah.
Right? Do double duty. Yours is zoomed in.
Oh, sure.
Just step back. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. You're all holding your breath. Okay, here we go. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Very nice.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service.
I want to hug.
All right. I give them all too. Congratulations. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Thanks for coming, guys. Plenty of room, Nick. All right. With that, we will move to the public hearing on proposed assessments. So with that, look for motion to open the public hearing.
Yep.
Someone like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion.
We have a motion from Ely.
Second.
We have a second from Al. So with that, we will open public hearing. If there's anyone who would like to come up and talk about the proposed assessments, please come forward. Yeah, it should be open. All right, with that, I see no one's coming up. Nick, is there any emails or written that need to be added?
So we do have an updated list. We did have some people that did come in and get theirs paid off. So I have the updated attachment A showing here with the strike through. So we do this by parcel ID, so we're not throwing names and addresses out there. Parcel ID is a little more discreet about it, but you can see these are the ones that have struck out. We did have this one here in which they made a partial payment in and then it reduced the amount owed. So
What's our final amount?
25 of them, which is a few less than last year.
It's $1, final dollar.
Oh, I'm sorry, $15,021.92.
Wonderful. All right, and nothing else to add to the record from any conversation, phone calls, emails?
Nope.
Wonderful. Anyone else want to speak? Seeing none, then I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
We have motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. So now we will look for a motion to approve Resolution 2023-34, certifying of unpaid delinquent utility bills and miscellaneous fees.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Yeah, we should at least crack it open. Reopen it. So with that, then we will move to the next item, Ridgeview Ambulance Operations Update. Nick, if you'd like to.
Thank you. I would like to present Mark Anderson, and he is the the ambulance director for Ridgeview Ambulance Service. So thank you, Mark, for coming in tonight, giving us an update on how things are going over at the new fire station.
Pass it down for, right?
Yes, thank you for coming in, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. After running the numbers, I kind of thought this is probably going to be the easiest council meeting I'll ever be at. And then I saw all the cars in the parking lot and I'm like, oh, what am I in for here? Thanks for having me at the top of the agenda. Appreciate that. So real quick, Nick asked me just to kind of give an update since we moved into the fire station, how things are going, so on and so forth. So I ran some numbers and just comparatively with Ridgeview Ambulance Service as a whole. And so as we go through this, if you want anything in context or have any questions, by all means, speak up. Happy to answer those questions. So total call volume. So 2022, we had 187 in the city of Mare, and Ridgeview Ambulance Service as a whole did 17,350. Generally, what we see is about a 5 to 10% of population base is what we do for call volume within communities. If you have a nursing home, it pushes it to that 10%. If you don't have senior living facilities, generally it's sitting around 5. So I think you guys are at about 7%. 2023 year to date, we're sitting at 164. Ridgeview Ambulance Service as a whole is 15,392. So that puts you about 15.6 per month, both in 22 and 23. So essentially we're going to hit about that same number as we did in 22. So average code 3 response times, 2022, we had a 9-minute, 48-second response time. And just to put it into context, through the Minnesota EMSRB, this would be considered a rural community. So we'd have, we could be here within 20 to 30 minutes, which, would never satisfy us as a company. We also are within the Hennepin County system. And so the Hennepin County Urban Core, we have to be at a code 3 call within 10 minutes and 59 seconds. And so that kind of gives you a little bit of context. Some of the more rural Hennepin County, it's actually 16 minutes and 59 seconds. So that would be your Mounds and South Lake area. So 2022, we were 948. 2023, from January 1st until let's see here, May, when we moved in, we were 11 minutes and 34 seconds. So we creeped up a little bit there in 2023. And then after moving in, we have that number down to 7 minutes and 52 seconds. So we reduced the code 3 response time by 34%, which, as I told Nick, I said that pretty much justifies what you're doing. It's probably one of the best response times that we have we serve 27 municipalities. It's probably one of the best, quite honestly. So I just put on the bottom two. So you're actually 21% lower than our entire core primary service area. And so that's all of Carver County and then portions of Hennepin, Wright, and McLeod counties. I stripped out our southern bases just because it's an on-call model, so it's a little bit different. And so on average this year, or in 2022, we were 1018 everywhere. We brought that in 23 down to 956. And in Mayor, again, we're at that 752. So it's not only helped this community as far as reducing that response time, but it's helped us overall, because realistically, when I look at it, if you drew a north to south, we cover 1,000 square miles. If you drew a north to south in our service area, 70% of my volume is east of Waconia. And so, to have a 7 minute and 52 response time for advanced life support services is pretty remarkable. So we very much appreciate the space. We have increased the cleaning frequency over there just because we are in and out quite a bit, and kind of realize that, we should probably do that. But, other than that, have done some cost sharing with the fire department. I think, talking with chief and everyone else, that it's going really well from all perspectives. So any questions for me?
Would there ever be an opportunity to, with you being in town, and if you're in town, that it would maybe, as a call went out, where maybe the mayor fire department wouldn't have to respond because you're here and you would just take care of it?
So we do have matrices built out like that in other communities. And it's so, when a 911 call comes in, it comes through the primary PSAP, which would be Carver County. So your call goes to Carver County first, and then it gets transferred to our dispatch center. And so they build out a matrix. And one of the questions they ask us in that is, are you in the city? Because that will dictate with the fire department whether they go or not. And then based on the acuity of the call, like high acuity calls in most of our communities, they go on all of them regardless if we're in the community or not, because we may need, additional hands, stuff like that. But some of that lower acuity or code 2 stuff, they won't respond to if we're within that community. Yeah. Yeah. So there is that potential in the future if that's something that you guys decide to do.
More out of curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? Well, I think it's been working out great. I know I've stopped in there numerous times and talked to many of the crews that are on there, and they
Good.
all seem they feel welcomed. It seems things are going well. So
Yeah.
I think this is a great relationship.
Absolutely. We very much appreciate the space. So
these numbers are really fantastic.
they are great. Yeah. When I ran them, I'm like, okay, good.
It's nice to get an update periodically. And
Yeah, absolutely.
certainly need them very often, but every now and again, we may reach out and have you swing in just for another update and see how it's going. And
Anytime.
if there's anything we can do that you guys need, certainly continue, reaching out to the chief or Nick, and
Yeah.
and we'll continue to move forward.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right.
All right. With that, Nick, we can move to the Arcola Farms development concept.
Probably want to go grab them and bring them in.
David, how are you?
Mayor Dodge, how are you, sir? Are we recording? Can I come over and say hello?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Peggy Wegner. Nice to meet you.
Garrett Ely.
Good
Nice
to
to
see
meet
you
you.
again.
Vicki McNeely.
Chad Held. Nice to meet you.
Got the whole gang with you, huh?
So I'd like to introduce David Stenz. He is the CEO of Arcola Farms, and you approached us, was about a month and a half ago, came to the city of Mayor with a concept and an idea for a piece of farmland to the southeast end of town here with the Vinkemeyer property, and approached us early and often and just wanted to make sure he met with us as internal staff to get an idea if this was going to be a project that was something that could be a reality, which from a staff perspective, I have to say I very much appreciate when developers come in on the front end so we can work with you and be a part of that process and help as we can. So David with Arcola Farms, if you'd like to take over and give the presentation on your concept.
Thank you. You know, it was important for us to come in early because that general sense of saying, if we want to do something like this, let's make sure we get to the mayor and the city manager first. Make sure everybody knows what it is that we're looking to do. So thank you, Mayor Dodge. Thank you, Nick Johnson, council, guests. Thanks for being here. We're going to cover three things: who we are, how we got here, and where we're going to go, and what it means for mayor. So who we are, David. You'll find more about me as we go, but feel free to look and dig more into it on the founders story section on our website, articles section on our website where we've written some nice articles about the kind of work that we do, and certainly on LinkedIn. And then with us on our team tonight, we have Scott Anderson. Scott's vision distribution, partner collaboration with a really strong background in grocery and beverage. Jake Bussey, operations and facilities management and all things farming, local gentleman from Glencoe. John Click, building the team, the culture, operating efficiency. John keeps all the wheels on the train and kind of points us in the right direction to make sure we're doing things that we should as we start to develop this. Joan Stefan Brandmeier, farm ambassador and doer of good deeds here. And Holly Bussey fits in that as well. Last person who couldn't be here is my wife, Mary, the other side of this family enterprise. Mary twisted her back today, so we'll see her at the next meeting. Mary is my wife, my co-creator in life and in this family-run business, the rock of our family. We have 7 kids, age 18 to 30. So how we got here, the journey's long. It started March 7th of last year when I was driving around looking for a farm in Carver. There's a gentleman in here who doesn't want to be named, but he's the reason we're here. We had lots of places we could go to build this farm and operation. And I was driving around on Highway 212 outside Carver first week of March and circled around and accidentally drove into a real estate sign and turned around and called the number. And this gentleman said, I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, I have a farm you need to see. Do you know where Mayor is? I did actually know where Mayor was. And it was one of those, sure, but what's happening there? So just a couple weeks later, we had our first tour of it. So the process here is to tell you a little bit more. Can you see that reasonably well from where you're sitting? Has anybody been on the Vinkemeyer farm? Physical, do you know exactly where it is? Have you seen the buildings? Yeah. So 80 acres of property. It's currently about 10 with old buildings on it. The buildings are places we'd like to save as much as we could, but from the perspective of John Metzold, who came out and looked at it, he'll be helping us build new buildings there. The farm isn't salvageable. We wish it was, but it's not. So we're going to have to do something to get rid of the barn. But the silos, the buildings themselves on the 10 acres of property that where the buildings are located, we'd like to save that if we can. That's the 10 acres that Nick has right there. So that barn portion will go away, but we'll save as much as we can of the rest of it. But the general thought of it is that it's an 80-acre farm where, if you want to go back to the slides, Nick, if you can, please. Wholesome, nutritious food crops grow in the field. So the fields are going to be growing with a variety of food crops. Currently, it's in corn and soy rotation, but we're going to change that because on an 80-acre farm, that's really not enough land to do significant things with corn and soybeans, but we can grow food there. So we're going to do lots of interesting things with food crops. And then in the southeast side of the open farm, we'll do the indoor production where local access and solutions for better health through food show up in the greenhouse. And we'll look at that in a minute. So the building here is representation of the food hall. That's going to replace the barn. This is a place where you can show up. Well, I guess we'll just go ahead and see, but that's the building that will replace what the current barn is. So this fresh from the farm idea has been really popular in this whole sense of saying local food access has changed a lot since World War II. And today there's the widespread awareness of the need for improving our health, improving the health of our planet with a return to growing and consuming fresh, sustainable, locally sourced produce. Increasing access to fresh, nutritious, unprocessed food for our kids in their school lunches all school year long is vital for our young kids. And food as medicine. And the same way for those of us who are a little older. The desire to eat more nutritious foods is a very large and growing concern that most of us have. And then on this side, our own journey to impact food and farming began on that Wisconsin farm. That's my wife Mary's family farm. The farmhouse we'll see in the next slide was completed in 1859. It's been in continuous family operation since 1855 in our family in Wisconsin. That's in Mount Horeb, southwest of Madison. What was really fun about being on this farm when we first kind of stumbled into it, there were 7 nieces, nephews, cousins owning it along with Mary at the time I met her 12 years ago. And when we first landed there, we were looking for a place to do an Airbnb in that house. And it was one of those dilapidated, it wasn't in great shape. You can see the photos of it if you go to jsdonaldfarm.com sometime. I think that information is in your packets. But Mary's idea was, let's restore this awesome farmhouse and make it an amazing Airbnb. And we did. It's a beautiful, farmhouse. While she was doing that, I was standing in the field with mud on my boots going, look at this amazing 12 acres. What are we going to do with this land? It's not a lot of land, but we could do produce here. That would be incredible. So this sense of saying, owning and operating this farm really started this whole process to say, what is the future of food? What kind of things can we do on a farm like this? And so in the same way there as it is here, the conventional corn and soybean crop didn't provide solutions for the fresh food that we wanted to grow. We wanted to find a way to provide fresh produce to the local community, farmers markets, restaurants. And it gave us a perfect chance to do it. And then this general sense that the short northern growing season that we have here doesn't allow consumer access to fresh food year round. So 1 September, the 2nd September that we had planted fresh produce in the field, the frost hit early and killed everything. And it was one of those, all right, well, now what do we do? So I'm standing in the field with my farm manager. I had just read the National Geographic article, which you'll see in a minute on the next page, which showed what the Dutch are doing by putting glass greenhouses to grow fresh produce year round. The Dutch are the 2nd largest exporter of fresh produce in the world behind the US. And I just had the kind of ridiculously simple statement that said, why can't we just do that? Why can't we just put a greenhouse over this little 10-acre field and there we'd have it? So it really ties with this rapid rise of consumer interest to know where our food comes from, right? We want to know. And my own children, from the general sense, from the 25 to 30-year-olds, my oldest lives in Chicago with our 2-year-old grandson. And that very strong sense he has of saying, I can't wait for you guys to get going with this, Dad, because we want to know where our food comes from, and we don't really know, other than the fact that it's shipped from far away. Next slide, please, Nick. So this was really fun. This had been I couldn't kick a shovel into this earth in September. This had been so abused with the corn crop that was in it that year. But the next spring we planted that buckwheat crop, and by mid-July it was flowering as buckwheat does. And I could dig a shovel down into that land and pull out a whole shovel full of earthworms just 3 months after the first planting of that stuff. It was awesome what it did to regenerate. And again, not enough to make commercial production possible with corn and soybeans on that land. It was just too small. But as a place to grow food, incredible. And that's how beautiful it was. It's hard to see with the grainy image on that thing, but it's a beautiful piece of property. Next slide. So a good friend of ours owns an Italian restaurant in Minneapolis. And this sense that we have, because we have a strong network of chefs and restaurant owners who only have access to fresh food in the summer growing season, like all of us do, right? So 8 months a year, this local restaurant buys food shipped from Mexico and California. Can you see the bottom under the pictures? So when I went into the kitchen and said, hey, can I take a picture of your tomato supply? Where is that coming from? And he said, I don't actually know. It comes from whatever produce supplier we have. I don't know. Coated with food-grade petroleum-based wax to maintain freshness. So prominent Minneapolis restaurant. The food is picked 3 weeks. The Roma tomatoes are picked weeks before they're fresh, so when they're green, and shipped here to ripen on the truck. And what he didn't know is he said it was California, but in the small print on the actual sticker, product of Mexico. So it's shipping from Mexico, which, that's what it does this time of year. Next slide, please. So there's the article that I read. It was the front page cover, September of 2017 of the National Geographic, and talked about this tiny country feeds the world. And we had this kind of crazy little thought that said, well, but this tiny little farm could feed Wisconsin. If a 5-acre building can convert to 100 acres of field production, we could have an awful lot of fun with the greenhouse if we do it in ways where you really grow heirloom quality produce instead of just the stuff that you see at the grocery stores where it's just giant tomatoes that are flavorless and something that we, certainly not our kids, would like to eat. So the general sense is that that the farm here converts from what it was to a place where on the outdoor side we have regenerative agriculture doing what that does to the fields and growing fresh produce in the CSA season. And then at the beginning of the school year, when the school year starts, the tomato season starts inside to provide fresh tomatoes all year round from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. Next slide. So the simplest way to describe farm to schools, farm to hospitals, farm to social services programs is when you feed, I'll just call it kids because that's the first market we're serving, farm to food programs with fresh produce at schools. The kids for the first time have access to the kind of thing that we pull out of my grandma's garden, out of your grandma's garden, out of the garden you have at your house in the summertime when the tomatoes are beautiful and fresh. The greenhouse industry could grow that stuff that way. They just haven't, but we can. And so our general sense is that by growing the highest quality fresh heirloom tomatoes that we possibly can grow, we can bring access to that fresh food to people who need it. Social service programs, hospitals, kids in schools. So I like to picture it this way. So little kids in the school lunch program get fantastic quality fresh tomatoes that they love. There's these little itty bitty ones we call them Skittle tomatoes. They fit like 6 or 7 of them on a tablespoon. You pop them and it's almost like candy. They're so sweet. They're called Skittles. Real heirloom cherry and grape tomatoes are so sweet. There's a higher Brix level. It's the taste flavor level inside a tomato. They're sweeter than strawberries. So you pop those things like they're candy. So we give kids access to that kind of stuff in their school lunches, and they love it. The nutritionists at school love to create fresh produce meals, but they can't get fresh produce after summer growing season's over. So now that the fresh growing season's over, we haven't been able to get really amazing tomatoes for about a month, right? But starting next year at this time, all things considered, as this develops itself, we're delivering fresh heirloom quality tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers to schools. So in starting it that way, the kids have access to the lovely fresh food at school. Then we put them from K through 12 on a school bus, because this place is designed around education, to bring them to the farm so they can see where their food is coming from. Back to that sense of saying, don't we want to know where our food comes from if we could? And don't we wish we didn't have to ship it all the way from wherever we have to ship it from? So we bring them to the farm and they can see where it comes from. Then we have these awesome little Dutch growing cups where a kid can take a seed and put it in a cup and put it in the actual greenhouse. Where when I was little growing up north in Cloquet, Minnesota, we would put a seed in the window and probably a month later, the teacher would finally throw it away because one little spindly thing came up and it disappeared. But in this sense, the kids can track their freshly growing tomatoes back in their classroom all school season long, because we can plant that seed in the greenhouse and then let it grow throughout the season. And then 65 to 80 days after we push that seed into the dirt, it's producing amazing fruit. So the kids can, name their plants and watch them grow and have it. So it brings back this sense of the kids know where their food comes from, and they'll eat it. They love it. So the bottom one, really just that general sense of the climate and the seasonal weather doesn't affect us. So we can grow really great food outside in the summer season when we can. When we can't, we can grow it in the greenhouse. Next one, please. So the K through 12 thing, here's what will happen at the food hall. So there's the fields that grow, there's the greenhouse that produces, there's the food hall. So food hall is a public space. It's a place for education, place where people can gather. We've had a number of people say, Joel Ansprater at Mayor Lutheran the other day said, can you get a place where we can come and meet, because we don't have enough space. Well, it seems like they should have enough space at that high school to meet, but they want to have a place to go and meet for any reasons they want to. So it's a place for that. Community gathering and public space for groups. Commercial production kitchen will be there, making sauces, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, Bloody Mary mixes, maybe possibility of a Bloody Mary bar there. We'll get into that in a second. And then the next one is the Simple Foods Brunch Cafe. So online sometime, go look at Fridheimer Tomato Bar in Iceland. You can see it spelled there. It's also in your notes. But look at Fridheimer Tomato Farm in Iceland. It's this amazing Scandinavian place where they grow fresh produce, and then they serve it in all kinds of ways in their the cafe right inside their greenhouse. In this country, we can't put tables right under the tomato plants. That's not. This isn't Europe. We have to isolate that a little bit, but we can have a cafe very near where the tomatoes grow. So the tomatoes are growing right there, and you're sitting here looking at those tomatoes growing while you're eating the fresh tomato soup bar. And if we develop it, the fresh Bloody Mary bar, all right there in the food hall building. And then I like this one because this is a rendering. This is actually a farm in New Glarus, Wisconsin, a winery in New Glarus, Wisconsin, but the layout on the Winkelmeyer farm is almost the same as that, where we have this elevated patio view with the look to the north, because as you know, the Winkelmeyer farm is bordered on the north by the Dakota Rail Trail. So the ability to sit there and sit on an outside patio and look out over the farm is fun. And then the possibility of the garden store. So our own CSA grown stuff, but also as a food hub for local organic farmers to send their stuff to a place where they can sell it. We can create that in a retail store here. Next one, please. So this is a little over the top, but it's cool. We just found this one this weekend. So in the planning process to say, what could that food building look like? What could we do? Because we have that 10 acres already. Let's preserve that best that we can, right? This is a place in New Jersey. And it's a nice thing to see, because they've created a place where, as you look at a simple farm like ours, it actually looks a lot like that. Not obviously that well dialed in, but that's the kind of place where you can have a place where people can come. And we like it here because it's preserving and restoring that existing place, which really gives another element to Mayer that hasn't really existed here at this level so far. Having a public place, not that we're going to do that, but having a place where people can gather, where we can do this kind of stuff, it really elevates the kind of things that we can bring to any town, and we're happy to be doing it here. Next one, Nick. I have a long-standing connection with the University of Minnesota. My uncle, as you will see if you look at our founder story on our website, created the cure for Dutch elm disease at the University of Minnesota in the 70s. So I was instrumental in the grounds crew that ran the elm treatment, the Dutch elm disease treatment for thousands of trees in the Twin Cities mostly, and got tied with the University of Minnesota then. So now in the latest version of that, can you see that? So this is Kernza on the right. It's an intermediate wheat grain. This is the annual wheat that we're planting all over the country these days. Kernza roots go down 10 feet deep. So as part of the Forever Green Initiative, which is the University of Minnesota's latest approach for regenerative agriculture, we're able to grow things like Kernza, which is incredible for the environment. And as you, I'm sure all know, that protected marshland that's on our property, the wetland marsh, has had Roundup Ready glyphosate spray all around that marsh for as long as that corn and soy crop has been planted, which is fine. That's what that does for producing corn and soybeans. But we don't want to do that. We're gonna plant Kernza and other conservation plantings around that marsh to further protect it from any possible runoff. So 10-foot deep roots all the way around our existing wetland marsh will do wonderful things to preserve and improve that wetland that's there. And Kernza is one example of a promising crop. It's used. My two favorite things are Perennial Pantry makes a pancake mix, which I can't give you, but you can buy online, and you should, because it's really delicious. It's just a great, one of the wonderful things that they're doing with Kernza as flour. Kernza is also available to make beer. So one of the things that we've seen is Patagonia now just came out with a Kernza lager. So our friends at Bang Brewing in St. Paul now brew Kernza lager from the Kernza that we will grow. So one of the possibilities we're considering is, could we put a small batch brewing operation here to test different samples of Kernza? One of the guys on our team is helping us with that. John Click is the founder of Excelsior Brewing. John's here. Next slide. Same sort of thing. It's a really terrific visual. If you put thousands of those plants together, imagine what that's doing for the ground to renovate, to restore that soil. Next slide. So what does it mean for all of us in Mayer? And I can now say all of us, because I've had a chance to meet most of you in the room and dine at the local restaurants and hanging out here for the last 8 months or so. When we first met unnamed realtor, Francis Condon said, "Don't use my," no, he didn't specifically say, "Don't use my name," but he said it may not help you, so maybe you shouldn't.
You've been warned.
So I don't know whether I just shot myself or whether. But Francis, to his credit, Francis has been an incredible supporter and a very hardworking guy to help us through the steps of first locating a place. And I have to say that when we first pulled in to the gate and opened it up and walked out onto the Meekemeyer farm, it was just one of these. Since the journey began 5 years ago in that Wisconsin field, where I was standing there thinking, I want to do this, but we can't do it in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, because it's 6 hours from home. We live here in the cities. And a local regenerative farmer and cider maker, Brix, B-R-I-X cider, if you're ever in Mount Horeb, stop in. They do incredible cider there. They approached us to buy the farm down there. We had never intended to sell it because it's been in the family since 1855, but that gave us an opportunity to come here and look for this. And And when Francis, when I pulled up in front of that sign called Francis, came over here, Scott was with me that day. We drove out to the farm and it was just standing there in the snow on March 7th of last year, just going, this is just too good to be true. This is unbelievably perfect. Look at that view. Look at that. Just an amazing spot. So, the obvious things that we all get, that you all get as people responsible for watching out for all of us in Mayor, is certainly the jobs creation. That's probably light, but I want to stay very conservative because we're early in this discussion. We're still we don't have concrete plans on maps yet exactly. So the purpose of being here is to get to the next step where we can finally draw something that is actually real. But the jobs creation is a blast. There's a lot of stuff we need to hire people for. They're good paying jobs. It'll start right away. And certainly the tax revenue. A greenhouse like ours is a highly producing place, produces a lot of food, a lot of revenue for the community. We're very excited about what that brings to Mayor. And then the fun thing is we named it after you guys. Mayor's Best Tomatoes. That's just why not? It's a wonderful opportunity for us to bring our hard work, our research, our people out here to make an interesting, different type of business that wasn't planned for this property. We've seen the sketches of what was going to be cul-de-sac homes, and that's fine. We think that what we're going to do in raising the level of awareness for the city and this community with a place like this to go, in addition to the ability to generate probably more tax revenue than you'd get in a neighborhood anyway. Not exactly sure of the details of that, but we're wanting to be very careful with what we say about it. But generally speaking, it's a manufacturing place. We're growing food year round. It's a terrific thing. The only thing that we've heard possibly from a concern perspective is something that concerns me as well, and that's light pollution. The modern greenhouses now, the ones that are available, because Dutch engineering is creating all of this. This is Dutch stuff. There are screen shields for light pollution. The general sense from my perspective as the owner, the CEO of this business, is to say I'm as concerned about light pollution as anybody else is, and there won't be any. There are filters for that, and we can dig into that as we get closer down the road with that. But creating a destination with that strong sense of identity is fun. Next slide is the initial logo for Mayor's Best Tomatoes. Have a connection to the people who grow your food. My door is open, my phone is open, my email is open. I'm happy to share anything at any time with anybody who has curiosity. It's hard to put words to the energy that's gone into the development of this thing over 5 years. And we don't have to do this here, but we want to do it here. There's just been this wonderful stepping stone of progress of saying, if this door is meant to open, it will continue to open. And it continually has until this point. So we're thankful for the time to be here and happy to open up to any questions.
Well, I had a couple written down.
Yeah.
We were talking and you answered one for like employment jobs.
Uh-huh.
So I have a question for Nick. Is this considered in city limits or how does that work? Because for like any tax benefit to the city or things like that, is it even in city limits or how's that work?
So the Vinkemeyer property is not inside city limits, but our preliminary talks would be having the 80 acres annexed in in order to become part of city limits so that we can get utilities.
Because that would have been the plan if we went with our 2040 comp plan
Yes,
and actually developed it residential.
right. And so this is not like we're bringing you into city limits because now we have the opportunity in the
No,
2040.
but I'm just
No,
saying like,
but we want to be anyway. So for Xcel Energy, for example, exists on the fire stations on the border, on the west line of our property. We have, because this is technically, our farm would be technically in Waconia Township, which falls under the Minnesota Valley Electrical Cooperative, which is not the same. We want to have Xcel Power. So what's really fun for us is, imagine being able to do when we were looking in Carver, we were going to be doing this on an open farm someplace. Here, we have access to the water tower sitting next to us, to the city utilities, to the electrical utilities. So to be tied to the city is an important goal for us. So we will be working as hard as we can, or just not whatever you want to call that, not hard as we can. We very much want to annex and be part of the city. We don't want to be part of Waconia Township for this. Mayor's best tomatoes should be in the city of Mayor. So we'd like to expand that border a little bit and include it in whatever steps that we need to take. We will be, that's really the primary reason why we came to Mayor Dodge and to Nick first and said, we have some thoughts of something we'd like to do here, but we don't want to do any of this stuff in creation on our own and then come to you and tell you what we're planning on doing. We want to come to you on the front side instead and say, let's work together to create this. That's so it works on a win-win for everybody. But annexing is a significant part of that. And we hope we can do it.
So far, so good for me.
Yeah, okay.
For schools, you mentioned Mayor Lutheran. Would you be contacting the local schools around for opportunities to participate?
Yeah, we would. I'm not sure if it's okay for Jake to talk, but I'll just speak for him. So we were, Jake was in conversation last week with, was that Hutch Schools?
Mhm.
So Hutchinson School System has this amazing kitchen. If you're not familiar, look into it. It's a beautiful commercial kitchen where they have their own sauce processing facility. So I have a photo, which I was going to include, just taken last week, where they have this incredible volume of tomatoes and peppers that they have from the summer harvest that just ended, and they're making incredible sauce out of it. And that was enough sauce to feed, how many was it? Like 1,800?
750 for one meal.
So that, I can email you a copy of the picture. It's the coolest thing to see. It's taken off the guy's cell phone from school. 750 kids, one meal, one day. So the amount of produce that we grow is significant, but the amount of produce that it takes to make a giant batch of pasta sauce is also pretty significant. So yes, our primary first goal is all the school systems that have access to fresh, that want to have access to fresh produce. And so the largest example is the Minnetonka school system, fed 1.8 million student lunches last year in their system. So while 5 acres definitely produces a lot of produce, schools and kids consume a lot of produce. So the first obvious place is farm to school. And yes, we have been and are contacting all of the regional schools.
Yeah, I just have a really, like, Watertown Mayor is our school district, public school district. I would want to make sure that they're contacted.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of kids that go to the community, and then we've got a lot of other outside schools that
Right.
people
Yeah.
open
Fantastic.
enroll to, and then Mayor Lutheran.
Right.
Like, to me, that would be super important that
Mhm.
those conversations are had. I graduated from Minnetonka, so I have nothing wrong with
Yeah,
them,
no,
but
right.
I would be like, I'd really like to focus on like the surrounding schools.
Right.
I'm not telling you what to do, but
No, I really appreciate the comment. Thank you. My wife graduated from Minnetonka as well. So the ability to take this into the school systems gives us our sense of this. One of Scott's primary roles is to go to the existing places that are here and say, let's make sure we have a full market for all the produce that we have coming out of this facility before we even build it. And school systems are one of the best places to do that. So we'd certainly love any input that you have on it. And talking with Mayor Lutheran last, I guess it was Monday. 12 feeder schools coming into the high school there. That's just one.
and Zion Lutheran is the K through 8th grade, and I know that they have they like to do the kind of farm to table
Right.
program.
Mhm.
But also just for me personally, it'd just be nice to make sure you include also the
Yeah.
kids that, because then the kids that live in Mayor that go to Watertown schools, because
Yeah.
all the schools are in Watertown and not here, it kind of would maybe bring some cohesiveness too for the school district.
Thanks for being on our team.
Yeah, no problem.
we-
And then the only other thing is
we
I
love
don't
the
like,
conversation. Of course, that's exactly where we want to go with all this.
you
So,
think you could get me to like tomatoes? I don't like tomatoes.
So-
What is wrong with you?
I know.
Skittle tomatoes, it sounds.
I know.
like.
That was very intriguing to me, and I feel like maybe that would be something.
Off the public comments, we'll get you some Skittle tomatoes, or we'll point you out where you can on your own. You have to pay for them, so you have to buy them.
No, that's fine. I have no problem supporting.
Skittles are really, really incredible, but, well, yes, and so, you know, we-
Yes.
well, and, you know, and most kids don't like bell peppers, but we'll have, 3 different varieties of bell peppers, 5 different varieties of heirloom tomatoes. But that entire conversation, it's so easy because now your comments alone just turn into, yes, could you please help us get to the person at Watertown School that we should talk to about that? Because those people are the people that we want to have.
Definitely.
So those are the conversations to have all over, because that is in my personal view, because much of this, there are farms like this with greenhouses like this that are much larger than this. They're, usually they're 30, 40, 50 acres. Those places are owned by venture capital firms that are owned by high financed, places that are desiring to turn profit only back to the shareholders who supported that. That's not what this is. This is a private enterprise, a local family business. So our ability to bring the food costs down for people who need it in food shelves, in the school systems, in food as medicine for diabetes patients, making food boxes to eat better food at home. All of those simple places can't operate in a world where the food is really expensive. So we had to, in the process of setting up the financials for this, look at it and say, can we sell this produce for less than the big producers of this kind of stuff can sell it for? And the answer is we can, because our personal passionate desire to get our kids to eat better food is high. So anything you can do to help us.
On your hands, my whole family is not tomato people, and
Well, here's the thing though. So we can take tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and make it into really amazing sauce, and then you'll love it. Or we could turn it into a Bloody Mary mix and
maybe people
Maybe.
will then, when I say I live in Mayor, they're like, "Where's that?" And maybe now they'll be like, "Oh, Mayor's Best Tomatoes," instead of me saying, "Oh, it's right next to Waconia, Watertown, Mayor." Oh, okay, now I know where you are.
That's what unnamed realtor back here has been saying the whole time. It's really this doesn't have to be. This is way more than West Waconia. This is Mayor, and so there is already identity here, but this seeks to escalate it just a little bit more. But really, seriously, like tomorrow, any input you can give us into the school system, we're putting those things together right now. And so the reason, just transparently, the reason why those things are valuable for us, those connections are valuable, because we're seeking letters of intent from places like that, because it works terrifically well at the bank, who is helping us fund, because this isn't an inexpensive place. So letters of intent are fantastic, and we're looking for those now. We want to sell this out before we build it. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions?
So is this the first property that you're gonna have a greenhouse on?
It is, yeah. Yes. Mhm.
So what does Arcola Farms do today?
This.
So this will be adventure number one.
This is adventure number one, yeah. We haven't closed on the farm yet, we don't yet own it. So I'm speaking a little bit out of turn because we haven't closed. We have to close before February 15th, which we're about to close, but it's not our farm, it's still Joel Vinkemeyer's farm at this point. So this is all, we're here because in this discussion of being preliminary, we'd rather have up front what we want to do so that you can help us do it. So yeah, this is our first operation of this kind.
And so what drew you to Carver?
We live in Minneapolis. We used to live in Orono. And it's one of those, we're looking for a home out here someplace. And it was one of those, well, if we're going to do a destination farm that has a really cool greenhouse and a place where people can come, and maybe we'll throw some wine grapes up and make it a destination, it needs to be striking distance to the cities. So I just looked at the map and started driving around in Carver on 212. and just driving around out there. And because several of us here are Excelsior, Western Metro. I mean, look at where we are. We're bordered on the, I can't even believe it. We're bordered on the bike trail. We're 20 minutes west of Excelsior. You could ride your e-bike from, you know how easy it is to get around out here. So the fact that we can do this in this proximity to town is incredible for us. And certainly it's really what's next for Mayor. I mean, it's surprising. It was surprising to us that Mayor wasn't more widely known yet, that there isn't a coffee shop here yet. Like, what's that? I know it left, but
That's a sore subject.
no, I know it is. I know where they went and why that is and all that stuff, but still there should be a coffee shop here. And the other thing that this does, by the way, for tourism and for people who want to have their cars repaired, if that kind of, body damage on a vehicle shows up, is, it brings people to Mayor. There will increase the population flow of people coming, not just to spend money here, but they'll go to Health's Bar, they'll go to Agave, they'll go to Knuckleheads, they'll go to, they'll
Really
come
done
to
your
town. So
research on what we have here.
the more, you should be proud of what's here, and there should be more of it.
So is the growing more traditional soil growing or hydroponic?
It's not hydroponic. Good question. Thanks. Our crops are on purpose long vine crops. All these tomatoes, peppers, heirloom tomatoes, bell peppers, hot peppers, cucumbers are all similarly growing in a vine. So you could, but we don't want to grow them in a hydroponic setting. Hydroponics is water that's supplemented with nutrients. The current best method for this is organic coconut husk type of medium. It's like soil, but they're growing in pots, in trays and in pots in a soil-based medium. My own personal work with the University of Minnesota and what's going to be happening in controlled environment agriculture, which is what this is technically called, that science is quickly changing. And so our desire in the next 10 years is to get as close to real soil as you possibly can. One of the things that we looked at, which isn't possible yet, is just to literally put a glass building over a farm field. But that soil, gets bad quickly, and then you're stuck with it under a glass building, and that doesn't work. So the science of how to do it is getting better quickly. Just a few years ago, it wasn't really possible to create heirloom quality produce in a setting like this, but now it is, and it's getting better all the time. So initially, it'll be pots. It'll be a soil alternative, but it's their roots. They're in an organic matter. Yeah.
And and maybe you covered this, the initial size of the greenhouse. What are you thinking?
Initial size is still fluctuating based on engineering and what we need to do, and the greenhouse builder saying exactly what, where and how it sits on the land and how big the structure should be. We're thinking, and it probably will land right about 5 acres. It's 217,000 square feet. And then on one side, there'll be, distribution and packing and shipping and stuff. Do you have the map? Do you want to show that? Show them the map of, oh, that's okay if you don't have it right now. You guys can see it later.
I do.
In the,
Give me a second.
sure. So in the field where, in the initial sketches that Nick and Dave Martini and John Anderson have.
This one?
Yeah. So it currently shows it here. It's really going to be, because of the 2030 or future plans for a possible road back that way, it's more likely that this building will shift down to the back of it, probably to about here, and this side of it probably to about here. So we'll slide it down to the north and west to keep it away from the road and to keep it away from the future side road on that side. And then when you're coming in from the Laconia side down 30 this way towards town, I have a landscaping background. So you have to just trust us on the thought that it'll be beautifully landscaped around, big pine trees surrounding it. Our goal is that you won't see it when you're coming down 30. But that's the approximate initial engineered location where it will likely be, give or take. We were considering moving it. Just last week, we were considering putting it here, right over the existing, because there's trees already there, all that kind of stuff is boundary blocking it. But we didn't want to do that because we want to preserve as much of the farm as we can. And we can still, even though you see, when you look at the property, you can see trees around the old building site. If we just plant trees on the other side, it'll look like they've been there the whole time. So the whole south end will be significantly planted.
Any other questions? Anyone from?
Yes.
So the whole rest of that photo there is roughly showing the ground that will be conventionally grown during the regular growing season.
That's right. So you can't see it in the tiny print there, but this says Kernza production fields. So the initial crop next spring will probably be buckwheat or sorghum grass or something like that. Because it's been in corn and soybean rotation for a long time, we have to plant the buckwheat crop to draw the last glyphosate out of the soil before we can start planting food in it. And then Kernza starts the planting season on August 15th. So we'll do a cover crop, which we'll mow however many times we need to between spring planting of buckwheat and August 15th. And the first planting of Kernza will go on most of the field out there, or on a part of the field out there in August. That's the first planting we could do. In addition to Kernza, it was covered a couple of slides ago. On the Forever Green Initiative crop portfolio, there's 15 different crops, food crops that can grow out there. The primary ones we're considering right now are hazelnuts and elderberry. But basically it's food planting, shrubs, fruit producing trees, and food, generally speaking. But because we have access to distribute, we have the license to sell and process and market Kernza from the U. It's a good place for us to start. So we'll start with Kernza. Thank you. Good question.
Anyone from the EDA or Planning and Zoning have any questions? No. Any other questions here?
Oh, I liked it.
Oh yeah, like I said, there hasn't been one thing that I've heard that I don't like.
Right.
From my meetings with them. That's great. And to Nick's point, from you guys getting ahead of the curve and getting in contact, and we can initially see if there's anything that would be a big roadblock and getting you in front of our planner and our city engineer, all that getting done ahead of time. Well thought out. You have a great team. You've thought out that you've done all your research. I think it's a great project. I think it's a great project for this property that we've struggled with. What are we going to do as far as residential? With our wetlands and with the trail, we can't get two exits and entrances. So I think it's perfect for that property. Francis, I thank you for bringing them out to Mayor as they were looking at. So, it's a big deal. So that I think it's a perfect property.
Thank you.
I think it is the perfect property.
Yeah.
With the proximity to the city, with the commercial that is needed, but with the agricultural history behind it.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah. So great. So I thank you for
Yeah,
coming
thank
out.
you.
and-
Thank you. One thing we didn't cover while you mentioned that, which is really important, is this is the marsh. Scott's idea early on was to say, let's make this ADA accessible to these fire departments, and we have access on that side. Having an accessible ramp or an elevated platform somewhere over here so that seniors, people in wheelchairs, anybody can walk out onto a platform and look over that beautiful conservation marsh. Trail system throughout. We're not sure exactly how to or whether we can attach access to the trail for bikes to come in, but certainly for bikes to come in and not have to go anywhere else, but could cut right through on a trail to get to us. Those kinds of things are the things that we really hope to do if we can get approval for that. But the simple things of letting everybody, including our seniors, get out there, to see it would be fun. So thank you very much for your help and your support and your ideas.
Great. Thank you for coming
Okay.
out. The entire team, thank you for coming out. Nice meeting some of you who I haven't. So thank you. We look forward to continuing to work forward.
Sounds
Yeah, and
great.
I'll try to
Thanks.
get you a contact. They just built a greenhouse. The
Oh, they did,
Watertown
really?
Mayor School District. Well, they're building it, I think, right now.
Awesome.
It's so up their alley.
We'd be happy to help them figure that greenhouse out.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Did they build that greenhouse already?
I think I think it's like in construction. It's 30 by
That's
50.
at the high school?
Yep.
Fabulous. Great.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
It's good seeing you. All right. Have a good night.
Nice to see you.
All right, with that, we'll move to the Old Creamery update.
Wow, that's a tough act to follow. But very inspiring. I love, in my wildest dreams, that's what I think of with the creamery, is being some kind of a extra destination. Ultimately, whether I'm the bearer of that or whether I'm just the person. Well, I'm the bearer, present bearer. Whether ultimately I'm handing this off to somebody else, and the legacy of this beautiful building can remain and grow and also become a destination within great proximity. I mean, we're talking about having one of the ideas to talk about is having a brewery in close proximity. So tonight I want to give you an update based on the final report from the engineering, and I start with an apology for actually giving you a draft report last meeting, but just in order to have something in your hands, we had to work with that. The new report isn't radically different, but I pressed them for more clarity and some specific language where you gave me feedback to talk about things. So where are we starting on the background? Okay, if we can go to the next page, that's kind of incidental. Again, this is just talking about the description of the structures. So let's go down to observations. So they kind of had a critical change in wording here. I kept saying, so I went to them and I said, fair, like they described the structure, the value of the structure as being fair. So what does fair mean in this context specifically? What are you talking about? What they came back with was very good. So I guess they're talking about here is just not explication in terms of what fair means in an architectural word, but just like on the scale of poor to excellent. But they do go on to talk later on about, there's a summary paragraph. It's really well done. Not critical, but here they said they recommended no access whatsoever. I said, well, you can have access. So they added that.
If there's anything there.
Okay, so here's really the most important part. Looking upon our observations and recommendations above is our opinions that the following. So we're going to just use some sort of more layman's language. In very good condition. Not require urgent repair stabilization efforts. Are suitable for adaptive use. That's about as clear as they could say is building's not falling down. Yeah, you can use it for something else. But the two roofs are falling down and they require stabilization and limitation of access. The other issue, and I think we missed it, was the security. find it on mine. Because the security issue was, yeah, okay. Right, it is right. So obviously, the roof's got to be dealt with, or as soon as possible. But they had an alarming paragraph where they said, we recommend better security for the building. So that was another thing I pressed them on. I said, well, what did you see during our visit that you thought should be fixed better than it was? And very specifically asking that, and they didn't have anything. They just said, well, you had mentioned maybe you're going to contact the sheriff's office and have somebody come out. And so what came out of that was review security structure with local authorities and jurisdictions. What I did in that regard at the end of October is I did contact the Carver County Sheriff's Department, and Deputy Lonnie Marcy's came out late in October, and we did a walk of the perimeter of the building and poking and prodding and checking things out. And he had a couple of recommendations, kind of minor. One was to add another lock on the east facade. There's the giant metal sort of garage door opening, and there was a lock and a chain on one side, and there was the other side was just a chain without a lock. So I added a lock there. He said to make sure, and there are some photos. I don't know if we need to even look at them, but there are also some that we said to make sure that the interior is locked as well. So there are, so there's exterior photos, sorry, two exterior locks and two interior latches. The other thing he recommended, which kind of surprised me, was there was a AC unit just next to the door, front door, basically, and he said, take that out. So I did. So I guess probably, and maybe prisoners experience, somebody could rock it. That's taken care of. But the upshot of his visit, which I would quote him on, was he said, as we walked around, he said, this looks okay. He said, this building is no more accessible than the other buildings in the area. So I feel like the structure of the parameter of the building will always be is a concern right now and is an ongoing concern. So as work develops, that's just something that's going to have to be returned to again and again to make sure that that there is no access that is not deliberate. The other critical issue, of course, is the roof on the lean-to, which is got the cracked beams. So we were looking at getting quotes, getting plans together for shoring up the roof. But one of the things that came out of the last meeting was Councilmember Held had said very directly, what about tearing it down? And I had not really considered that in terms of, I thought cost-wise, it was out of range. So in the last 3 weeks, I've had 4 contractors out to try to get bids and to try to figure this thing out. What's the best way to go about it? But a couple of those were actually demolition people, because I also want to get, as we go forward with this and start the plans, one possibility of all this is we should just demolish the building. So that's something I want to know upfront of the cost in that. So that's sort of one of the brackets from all the way to refurbishing, developing it, turning it into something beautiful, tearing it down. So it's actually, this is a preliminary stage in terms of the numbers, and things need to be checked out, but I'd say there's a better than 50% chance that the lean-to will come down as opposed to be shored up. And that's an ideal as far as I'm concerned.
Because something you think will still happen this fall?
Yes, that's the hope. If we can get it, if depending on the weather and such, but right now, until the ground freezes, I think there's I think a depth of about 2 to 4 feet of bricks underneath that are supporting the concrete deck that's on the south side. Yeah, the concrete deck is interior to the building, but those would have to be, I mean, once the ground freezes, that would be difficult, but I don't think that really comes up until January, February.
So what are thoughts here on security and the solution for the lean-to or the resolution for that? People feel comfortable with what's
Yeah.
what's been done?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the progress.
Yep.
Thank you for being very
Prompt.
prompt and forward with your information. I really appreciate that. And I'm satisfied with what you've done so far.
I am too.
I was just going to say, if the lynching does come down, it's, there's been a lot of use subsequent to its existence as a creamery. There's 2 garage doors cut on the west side. So it's not a solid brick wall, just so that no one gets surprised here. There would be 2 for now. There's one has a garage door, and then it would be a wood of about 8 by maybe 10 by 10 feet.
Okay.
And then that would be secured. So
In fact,
after, if you did demo,
absolutely, yes.
those spaces would be secured.
Absolutely. And that's when I was talking about the security is ongoing. Yeah, it becomes a whole different security issues. And so that the securing, the new security for the new openings, which include like the original, not the front door, but I guess the second door. And then there's a second set of main doors adjacent to it. It would all have to be secured, as well as the sort of a beautiful little portico front room. That's kind of a triangular room that comes out the front, which would be revealed. You can kind of see from one side what if once the lean-to comes down.
Good. Nick Johnson, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't, Mayor.
Okay, perfect. Well, I appreciate the update. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate what you've done to get it secured and continue to move forward with the lean-to and decide demolish it or repair it would be great. And then
I'll be in touch with Nick on that,
Yep.
and as well, going forward, also driving forward to, we'd spoken about delivering a January plan with some numbers and some.
perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Just, sorry, one quick one. Should it come to demolition and that's what you wish to do, just once you make that decision, give a call up to City Hall. You'll have to pull a demo permit to have that done. Just want to make sure that's on your radar.
The vendors had mentioned.
Perfect.
And I guess the next order of business is I don't know if because that kind of is associated with the cream, of course. I mean, it's kind of the spur to this.
That's our next agenda item, so we'll discuss it and we'll refer to you if we have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that then, Nick, we can go over the resolution for participating in the local housing incentive program.
So this is one of the grant programs that Mr. Vlasek was looking at using in order to help garner grant funds towards the renovation of the old creamery. And before you can apply for that program, you have to participate in the local housing incentives account program with the Met Council. So the resolution in front of us that we have, I went over this with the Met Council people to make sure it was in good order. They're all fine with everything in there. And like we had talked about at the last council meeting, this allows us to participate in it so we can apply for grant funding down the road. The goals that they set out, they are not hard requirements. These aren't the housing goals that we need to meet. They're more goals. And if we don't meet them, there isn't any punitive action or some clawback or something of that nature that's going to come down the pike with that. So having looked through it and researched it and having a good conversation with the Met Council, I would recommend adoption.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve Resolution 2023-35, electing to participate in the local housing incentive account program under the Metropolitan Livable Communities Act.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. There you go. Thank you for coming in. So with that, we will move to city council reports. Councilmember Wagner, anything to report on?
Nothing.
Councilmember Ely. Councilmember Halt.
I have nothing.
Councilmember McNeely.
No.
And I have not had any meetings since our last city council meeting myself. So with that, we will move into closed session for a continuation of the city administrator's annual performance evaluation authorized by Minnesota State Statute 13D.053. So with that, we'll have to,
Need a motion?
oh,
Motion for
yeah,
that?
we'll need a motion to move.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We will move to closed session. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Les. Shut that off.
Take a bathroom break real quick.